2018's Best Independent Game winner Celeste is often represented as a triumph in the indie game world. Developed by indie company Matt Makes Games and spearheaded by Maddie Thorson, Celeste is a platform which sees you, the player, controlling a young woman called Madeline, as she seeks to climb the imposing Celeste Mountain, all while ignoring the warnings from her close family and friends. Naturally, this journey comes with trials and tribulations, as Madeline even discovers a darker side of herself, cryptically named Part of Me. Part of Me, however, isn't merely an evil character meant to stop you in a generic video game. No, Part of Me is the physical representation of Madeline's anxiety and depression. However, while Part of Me is the far more obvious example of the game representing the intended emotion of Celeste, the music alone is a far better representation of this. The music of Celeste is ever-changing, and that's very intentional. Throughout interviews with the game's composer, Lena Raine, it's obvious that the music was a key aspect to the development of the game right from the very early stages. For Celeste, I had constant build access as the team was working on the game. I test out mechanics, give feedback, and plan out how I'd use the structure and interactivity of each level to influence the structure of the music. From the start of the game, Celeste's music has a triumphant and hopeful vibe to it, represented through the track ironically named First Steps. This is because Thorson wants to put you, the player, into the same mindset as Madeline, excited to start the long journey to the top of Celeste Mountain, while also apprehensive about the climb ahead. Upon completing the chapter, however, and progressing to Chapter 2, Celeste's music starts to incorporate Madeline's anxiety into the tracks. Chapter 2's Resurrections is one of the longest tracks in the game, clocking in at over 9 minutes long. This is because the multiple cues built into Celeste, which drastically change the overall vibe of the level. In Chapter 2, you start off by a campfire which Madeline was sleeping beside. As you make your way through the level, the music represents Madeline's curiosity at what may lay ahead, as the level is currently free of danger, therefore the track is very calming. This all changes when you come across a mirror where Part of Me breaks out and flies away. Suddenly, the track becomes louder and changes to a faster-paced version to the pre-mirror track, owing to Madeline's confusion at what Part of Me represents. Later in the level, after confronting Part of Me face-to-face, a new theme represented through the rest of the game plays, Madeline's theme. This theme is written to be the direct opposite of Madeline's theme, as detailed in an interview with Lena Raine. I wrote it literally as a minor inversion of Madeline's theme. Her theme, in its first iteration in First Steps, is primarily cheery. It verges into minor every now and again, but for the most part it stays put. Madeline's theme is all minor, it's the embodiment of her darker side. This darker side of Madeline reaches its boiling point at the end of Chapter 4, as Madeline and Theo, your partner in crime as you climb Celeste Mountain, find themselves trapped over a massive chasm in a gondola. All the stress and anxiety of the journey suddenly catches up to Madeline as she experiences a panic attack. The music represents this perfectly, as the quiet trill of Madeline's theme is quickly interrupted by a new, unheard synth-heavy track, putting the player instantly on edge and uncomfortable. Dark shapes and tendrils then close in from every side of the screen to further represent Madeline's anxiety attack. Theo then tells Madeline to imagine a feather floating in front of her, and to breathe in and out and imagine that very feather rising and falling along with her breathing. As you, the player, then perform this action by controlling the feather, the terrifying tones of the anxiety attack track slowly fade into the background, and as Madeline calms down, her theme slowly creeps back in over the top. It's one of the most intense scenes in the game music-wise, with great choices on Lena Raine's part with the representation of an anxiety attack in musical form. In Chapter 6, called Reflection, you rejoin Madeline right after she's fallen all the way to the bottom of Celeste Mountain in the climax of Chapter 5. Madeline realizes she shouldn't be afraid of Part of Me, and seeks to reconcile and ultimately embrace this darker side of herself. After a long boss fight, Madeline confronts Part of her, saying that it doesn't have to be afraid, and that she'd rather embrace her than push her away. The music as Madeline connects to the darker half is a quieter tone than expected for most players. As in any other game, this would simply be a loud and over-the-top sound effect to represent the importance of what has just narratively occurred. But not in Celeste's case. As orbs of white light surround Madeline and enclose in, the game transitions to a light piano mix, symbolizing the optimistic future for these two characters. However, right at the end of the base game, Lena Raine starts to experiment with something that hasn't been a factor in the music for the entirety of the game: silence. After reaching the top of Celeste Mountain, the intense climbing music that was present throughout the level is gone and is simply replaced by the ambient sounds of the wind blowing as the player slowly catches sight of the little red flag at the top of Celeste Mountain. This moment is quiet and offers itself forward as more of a moment to let the player take in the journey they've just had, instead of overwhelming them with some epic score to drown out the moment. It's this silence that really makes you appreciate what you've just played and the meaning behind it. Not every accomplishment that happens in life should be a massive celebration, and sometimes there's beauty in just taking a quiet moment to reflect and be proud of how far you've come. Celeste's narrative, while difficult for some to comprehend at times, is heightened entirely by the music. Without it, dramatic scenes wouldn't have the same impact, while even quieter, more introspective scenes wouldn't pack the same punch either. Lena Raine's work on Celeste's score is truly a testament to why the game has done so well in the indie game space, and why countless developers and musicians will be inspired by its auditory storytelling for decades to come. Hey everybody, I know this is a bit of a different video than usual on the channel, so I hope you guys have enjoyed nonetheless. I've still got a number of uni things to upload on this channel, so just a few showcases and that kind of stuff, so hopefully you guys will stay tuned for that. And yeah, without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next stream or video. If Nintendo out, do not do drugs, kids, it is bad. So everyone, bye-bye.